Hello and welcome once again to the Z-Axis, the FPS+Z podcast. It's been a while since we've done one of these things, but on the bright side there is a lot going on in the FPS+Z genre, and we've got a couple of the games that have been talked about the most lately that are kind of in a more advanced stage of development as far as what they're getting done. We're going to be talking a lot about Project Freefall, and we're going to be talking a lot about Project Z, and we have some of the folks here with us today, and we'll go around. I'm Winners with the One, by the way. Hello. And we are joined by, let's see what we got here, BugsPray, the head of the Project Z project. How are you, man?
Doing pretty good. Just got off work. Happy it's Friday. Excited to be here.
And
what's your
you
beer
guys
choice?
Yes.
My beer, I don't have one. You know what? I'll get one. It's going to be an Atlas Amber.
Awesome.
We have noted Tribes legend Fire, the chaser extraordinaire. He's played Project Z, and he's got a lot to say, I'm sure. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I just play too many games. That's why I'm here, pretty much.
That's as good a qualification as any, man. Definitely. And Ignorance, the head of Project Freefall, who's going to be telling us about that game. I believe there's a new version of that out now. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Yeah, there is a new version of the game out. You can always get it at the downloads page.
And the lead coder of Project Z, Mabel, favorite of the Tribes community, and always not afraid to tell us what he has to say, and I'm sure today will be no different. It's good to have you, man.
Hey.
And, of course, Freaky. You all know Freaky. He has casted many a Tribe game, as have we all, but especially you, Freaky, and is always a pleasure.
Hello, sir. I'm doing fantastic, yes.
And with all the pleasantries out of the way, we'll get right into it. You guys on Project Z, you're coming off of a showing of the game that was last weekend at PAX, and some of the people in this very cast got to play the game, as well as other members of the public. This was, as I understand, the first time that the game has been shown to anyone in the public. You guys want to tell us how that went and what how that all transpired?
Also, really the first time it's been talked about, so it's a day of firsts for us.
That's true. Yeah, it actually went really, really well. We were actually hoping we'd get 10 to 15 people. We had 20 RSVP. We were sort of expecting 30 just based on kind of word of mouth and people we heard were going to be there. And we ended up getting 40 people there, so it went really, really well. We had a keg, we had snacks and some pizza and the whole 9 yards, and got a chance to show off what we were doing. And as far as the format's concerned, we kind of did a little presentation style. We talked about the company, what we're trying to do, and kind of the timeline over the last year for when we started development and kind of how this project came about. And then we broke it up into kind of two pieces. One was a gameplay demo that people can kind of get their hands on and play. And the second part was a visual demo that was just a video kind of showing how our art style was going to look like in the game. And there were some concept pieces and things like that were thrown around through the presentation. But everyone was super hyped, super excited. We got some event videos. We might put out some of that a little bit later. Not sure when or what you'll see, but it'll likely hit some sort of medium sooner or later. But yeah, had a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of cool people, including this isn't my first time meeting Freaky, but got to see him again, and got to meet X-Fade and Dodge Pong and Upsale, and like a bunch of really cool guys, and a bunch of people who played a ton of Tribes, and we're super happy to see what we'd worked on, and I mean, they can speak for their experience.
Yeah, I know you were there, Fire. Your thoughts on it? I was really interested in what you had to say about the movement and the fact that Midairs are kind of back in this game.
Oh yeah, they're back. So I'd say that coming from Tribe Descent, where there's so much air control and the discs are really slow, this is going to be a breath of fresh air for a lot of Tribes fans. And a lot of people who've never played like a hardcore Midair filled Tribes game, they're going to experience something different.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Mabel?
Especially compared to Tribes Ascend, that disc is really fast. I'm not sure how much faster it is, but it's like 1.5 times. It's a lot. It really enables Midairs nicely, which we saw a lot of actually. Fire played a lot of games with us.
Yeah, I did a lot of dueling. It took a little bit to get back into the swing of things since I haven't been playing much Tribes lately. But after maybe like an hour and a half, yeah, you guys too, I guess. After like an hour and a half, it felt like home, I guess. It felt good. I own Mabel and BugsPray a lot. Self-proclaimed #1 player.
None of this is true.
It is true. What are you talking about? This is like we had like a 2-to-3 ratio against you. Come on now.
Just remember who taught you how to use grenades.
Oh, yeah, Bugs is the king of grenades, though. I'm terrible at them.
Freaky, what did you think, man? I know you got to play it quite a bit.
Actually, like Fire said, it feels like a breath of fresh air. And the MAs are back because of the way the physics work. It's more related to your ski and your trajectory more than actual air control. So it's a lot more easier to line up your shot and get that MA, and it feels so good.
Yeah, the last time Freaky played the game, actually, he got ridiculous midair. Just stood up like, I'm done.
Quit while I'm ahead.
So maybe we should explain like why you get more midairs over a game like Tribe Descend. Like one of the big things is the air control. So in Tribe Descend, when you're not using your jets, you have just a ludicrous amount of air control. This is true for other games like Legions too, where you still get a lot of midairs because of the projectile speed. But a game like Project Z, to actually juke in the air, you're going to want to use your jets. That's how you have to get around, and it's going to be a big shift from people who've only played Tribes Ascend before. So the movement's a lot more linear. You can get midairs more consistently, and it feels a lot more rewarding.
Well, it's also a lot more linear only when you're not spending energy.
Yeah.
Because when you're spending energy, you actually have a lot more control than you ever did in TA, right? Because the jets are very strong and have a lot of horizontal can apply a lot of horizontal force if you choose to. So the jets will mostly apply up unless you're like pushing in a direction and where they'll start vectoring to the side, and so they'll sort of push you to the side. So we try to keep the balance so that you can choose between like spending resources or to like dodge or sort of just go just try to avoid things on air control alone. So you have to pick like what kind of how much you want to dodge and what you want to spend for that.
It all sounds pretty interesting, and so far there's we can't actually play the game yet as far as any sort of alpha release. Do you guys have any sort of schedule as far as when that's coming out, or are we still kind of in the movement working on kind of stage?
Max, are you on top of that? Or?
Yeah, so we aren't going to talk much about the timeline just yet, and the reason for that is because we're figuring that out. We had a huge push towards PAX, and we wanted to get people, in front of the game and playing it and get some feedback early on. But now we're sort of figuring out the next steps, and exactly what those steps is still kind of unclear. I think we have kind of a direction that we want to go. And I know this sounds like super vague, but that's honestly just where we're at. We aren't hiding anything. We told you guys at the event, and it's been kind of posted around, that we're really interested in crowdfunding. And so timing an alpha before or after that is something you have to kind of decide. And it has there's a lot of factors involved. Not the least of which is how long it will take for us to get to an alpha state. One of the things that we're really pushing for is making sure that every release we have is of very high quality. A lot of us have been around the Tribes community for a long time. T1, T2, Vengeance, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
There have been a bunch of projects that have risen and fallen. And throughout the course of those projects, there's been kind of like drips and drops of information coming out. Some of them have had lots of information coming out, but I would basically the ones that generated the most hype and got the most interest were the ones that had the highest quality content. And even if that wasn't super frequent, it instilled a lot of confidence in the team. And as long as it's regular and as long as it's high quality, then the people who are following those sorts of projects, will stick around and actually kind of pay attention to it. And that's sort of our strategy here is, we want to make sure that when we tell you guys something that we're as close to accurate as possible on things like release dates or features or that kind of stuff. And we want to make sure that every time that you guys see something and touch something that it's of high quality and will wow you and surprise you.
Sure, man. I think that's a solid approach. Though we will sell no wine before it's time, the Orson Welles approach, and that's sort of piqued a lot of people's interest in the game a lot more, I think, too, which is one of the things that really kind of made the PAX thing even more of interest, I think, to the Tribes community. And since you guys had a lot of the great Tribes players or people with a lot of experience playing the game at this PAX event, did you get some good feedback that goes directly into making the game from that? Or there'll be things that are sort of being done to the game based on having more people get in and play it?
Mabel, you want to take that one?
Yeah, okay. Well, not exactly, because everyone sort of just loved it. The number of complaints is actually pretty low, so like the number of adjustments that we have to make about anything is pretty. So it's nice. It's nice because it tells us that we're on the right track when it comes to like movement and all those other things. It's you're building all these things in what's basically a vacuum, and it's really spooky to like go out and like just give this to a bunch of people and be like, all right, what do you think? Because it could like go terribly, right? I mean, we really hoped it wouldn't and didn't think it would, but like it always could. And yeah, the response was actually really, really positive, like much more positive than I was expecting. So I guess we're just gonna keep doing because it seems to work okay.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was pretty hard to give feedback because a lot of things I was like, oh yeah, so this, and maybe was like, oh yeah, that's planned. I know. So
I know
a lot of this stuff, I was like, yeah, this could be better. Yeah, I know. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
well, yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to play it myself, definitely. And but also, we've got Ignorance here, of course, or Sacaid, our friend from Project Freefall, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I know you guys have been doing a lot of new iterations of the game and doing a lot of work on it. Where are you guys at currently?
We're pretty close to alpha. It's one of those things where movement is very functional at this point. I'd say it's production. Working on getting things like a master server up, user interface, but over the next couple months, we're actually going to start seeing game type specific things like CTF and then King of the Hill and other things where it's actually going to look more like a game rather than an experiment. Besides that, we're just kind of expanding. Like we'll be working on portals and such along with the master server. So it's just kind of expanding what's in the game.
Now, philosophically, I know you guys are kind of going at this kind of 180 degrees from Project Z in that it's more of an open source kind of platform, the way I've heard you describe it. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that, where you're kind of inviting everybody to throw in?
Yeah, it's platform is definitely the way to look at it rather than game. I'm aiming much more to make something of a good platform for people to mod and such. And it also goes along with Unreal 4. I have a lot of interest in Unreal 4 and a lot of what Epic does. So I'm posting things there just because I also interact with the community, and so I may as well integrate it with Project Freefall. And I always like to give away open source code just because even if someone's not really interested in the game and such, just the general interest you get from somebody who happens to pass by and go, oh, you could do this better. And then they send you code that works or something like that. But yeah, it's open source. It's going to be fiddly, like business model and such. Any type of money that comes in. I've been thinking on it hard because by year's end, probably there will be something going on that front. It definitely won't be anything like selling a game for, like $20 or something like that. It'll be something more alternative. Like maybe it just might be straight donations. I don't know. We'll see.
And I know that you have Greth writing the lore and stuff for it too, so I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah, Greth's doing his thing. It's the Greth lore. We'll just
Greth's doing his thing, writing a lot.
A whole lot, dude.
He's also mapping a lot. But yeah.
Yeah, has Project Z got lore? Have you guys got people writing a whole backstory for this thing?
We don't have anybody specifically writing lore right now, but we have had volunteers, and it's something that we're thinking about. It's something that isn't fully developed because we've been focusing on gameplay first and foremost. And I know I'm personally interested in an interesting and engaging storyline. Mabel would probably say otherwise, but it will definitely happen. There will be something there.
Just saying that. Have you read the Star Siege lore? Like we played.
I
that
love
game
it.
We play.
I love it. Okay, all the way
Yeah, I
back
haven't
to
read the
Star
lore.
Siege and Earth Siege.
Well,
Star
even
Siege.
Proj talked about the
Star
depth of the
Siege
lore, but I
came-
don't know if he was being sarcastic or not.
Star
Oh,
Siege
he was.
came with
Oh, he was.
like a 200-page manual that was all just lore.
Yeah,
I
It's
read
great.
that
I
thing
love that
like
too.
5 times.
Dude, I'm writing a novel for our games, so yeah. But I don't know, some people like that stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually-
it doesn't get in the way of gameplay, so there's no reason to avoid it. It's just like where it falls in the priorities list is relatively low, just because it's a game first. It's not even like a single player game where it's like story engagement is like a high priority rate. It's just like nope, like you're just gonna be playing this in multiplayer for hours. That's how it's gonna work.
Good man. Good man.
That's really interesting though, because that question was actually asked at the showing.
Yeah.
What,
But,
people asked
yep.
about lore?
Yeah.
People are much more interested in it than I would think from my bubble of hardcore competitive gamers, which I find hard to believe, but
One thing I'll say is that they might not make it out of the house, so you may not have actually met as many of them as you thought.
Ooh,
Burn.
shots fired! Shots fired!
I mean,
Oh, so you guys have made a studio. Archetype Studios is the name. And Project Z, I understand, is just kind of a placeholder name. You're looking at calling it something else
it's a working
eventually?
title. Yeah, it's definitely a working title.
Yeah, I would love to call it Scooty Jet. I think that sounds hilarious.
Oh no.
It actually
I'm
fits
kidding.
with what I saw about the art.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a working title. No timeline on when we'll decide on something like that. It'll likely happen once we solidify like all the major gameplay elements and some of the lore. Just whatever kind of makes sense at the time. But it could be under the Project Z banner for a while.
Are you trying to gather support for Scooty Jet? Is that what you're
Yes.
doing right now?
If you support Scooty Jet,
Scooty Jet.
send a mail saying we want Scooty Jet to info@archetypestudios.net.
Oh my god.
Post
There you
in
have
the
it.
Reddits.
FPSZ
subreddits.
Z Access Podcast exclusive. But we as speaking of FPS+Z, of course there is a subreddit if you go to r/FPS+Z on Reddit, and from that we've gotten some questions for the podcast, which I will start going through here. Here's one regarding Project Z. Now this is the top-rated comment, guys. Are the developers planning on having a system of deployables, packs, and loadouts at least on par with what is present in Tribes 2? That is from Jack Booted Thug. And seconded by LO Blue Jay from Epidemic, who I'm sure would
That
like
was
some
also
deployables.
asked. That was also
This-
asked.
This is aimed at Project Z or Project
Yeah.
Freefall?
No, that's not.
Well, we'll go ahead and throw it at both because it's
I
something
see
that
it
people
now.
are wondering about.
So BugsPray, you want to answer, or
No, this is gameplay, man. This is you, buddy.
oh, okay.
Can we
Um,
turret farm, dude?
Yeah, so we're looking at those things. No comment on exactly what the depth of those things will be. Just because there's a lot of stuff in Tribes 2 that isn't necessarily like something that you actually want in a game. Like the command map where you can like order people to do stuff and stuff like that. It's like some people don't really use that, and it sort of just
User
adds
was moved to
complexity
your channel.
and makes the game like more difficult to just even make bindings for, which becomes a problem pretty quickly if anyone's ever played Tribes 2.
And all
They
the
know that-
scripts.
They know that the binds that cover the entire left half of your keyboard with shift and control modifiers on like everything. It gets pretty insane. So we definitely want to cut down on the overall needless complexity, but we do want to add things like like deployables and like all the base play like that. We know that stuff's important. We know that a lot of players really enjoy that, especially from the more casual community. So
yeah,
like that's always like, and yeah, there will be. Maybe we didn't say it. We said that there would be packs or it's like some equivalent. We have some ideas for interesting spins that we can put on those. But yeah. So the stuff will be there. It's just exactly what form it's in is TBD.
And also, one thing to note is that during our demo, we did show off a couple assets. One of them was deployable. We showed off a deployable sensor in the art demo.
It was super cute.
Oh, okay. What about Freefall, Ignorance? Are you guys going to have deployables and stuff like that?
Yeah, that'll happen. It's one of those things that it kind of falls. There's the issue of Freefall's starting as an arena shooter, and it's going to expand to fill the void between arena and then kind of Tribes 1, Tribes 2, which I guess I call those more like strategic games, I guess. It's deployables, classes, and such. And so they will eventually we'll start seeing things like that, but they'll be introduced kind of in waves, probably with game types where it makes sense for them to be in. It's just one of those things where, I mean, it was mentioned earlier, you see a problem in the game and somebody would be like, hey, that could be better. And be like, yeah, I know, that's on the list. How long's the list? Well, it's 20 pages long right now and growing. So things will get introduced as they come. At the moment, I'm focusing a lot more on the low-level parts. Just getting the HUD to not look and feel horrible is one thing. And then I'm looking into, rather than just deployables, custom gravity volumes, might be able to do things like terrain, similar to like Tribes 1. I think T2 did it as well, where you have terrain tiling. Essentially, you have infinite terrain. It seems like it should be doable in Unreal 4, and then portals as well. Just abstract things. I want to expand it so that mappers can create a lot more than just two-dimensional terrain maps, pretty much.
Okay, and as far as vehicles, I have to ask about vehicles because everybody knows I love vehicles. I'm assuming pretty much the same thing on both these projects, is that it's something that's being looked at, but off in the future. Yeah,
I'll take this one first. Yeah, vehicles definitely will be in. Probably the plan for now is I've talked with some people, just getting ideas and such, and it actually sounds like probably actually have a vehicle-specific game type that'll come out, and then a lot of the assets, they're planned to be just kind of plug and play with whatever game type map you want. And so once they're in, then they can filter back into whatever else already exists if mappers choose to do it.
Okay. Mabel, will there be Shrikes in Project Z? Will Thea be able to shoot me in a tank?
No comment on which vehicles exactly will be in. We'll definitely be looking at vehicles. Like I said, base play, casual play is very important to us, even if the vehicles aren't like the best thing in competitive. We know that there's a lot of people who don't play that. So that's, of course, going to be on the list. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And for fans of Hell Legit Games, I know Fix just asked, why don't we have Shrikes and #Wrecked? Imagine a world where it's just Shrikes, and I will just leave it at that. And
how about this? You are a Shrike.
Yes.
Bam.
It can be like Rockets. We saw packs where you're a rocket shooting rockets. You can be a Shrike shooting Shrikes.
I love Rockets.
You lost me.
It's a pretty cool little indie game.
It's great. It's awesome. I love it.
And let's on that note, we'll go to our friend Neepel from Arena FPS asks, as Project Freefall will be a blend between both arena shooters and Z-Axis Tribes style shooters, which game type do you intend to be the main focus of the game? Duel like Quake or CTF like Tribes? I think you sort of went into this, but
you covered it a little bit. It's one of those things where it will kind of be dependent on what the community is doing at the time, just because game types, a game of games probably will pretty well describe what Freefall will end up as, planning to have a lot of different game types, but just from the community that's around now, CTF seems like kind of a gimme, just because almost everybody that's interested in it is interested in CTF, and then Duel as well, just because the Quake people are interested in it as well. They just don't happen to frequent Reddit and such. I normally am talking to them in IRC, so I imagine it'll start with CTF and Duel, but whatever else works. I mean, it's kind of like when Halo came out, nobody knew what Oddball was, and then Oddball was fun as hell, and a lot of people played it. So we'll see, but it's going to be multiple game types for sure.
So I have a question about that. How are you going to balance the indoors versus outdoors combat, how the jets work and function, and all that good stuff?
Aimed at me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I've been working on at the moment, and it's for now the mechanics involved with jets actually seem to work well. They're tweakable with good results. They're not balanced really well at the moment, just because I've been working indoors and now just transitioned to working indoors and outdoors. But a lot of it has to do with fall off of the jet thrust. Essentially, when you're going, the faster you go in the direction you're jetting, the less jet thrust you are able to produce. So it allows for strong jets at low speeds that then peter off at higher speeds, which seems to be a pretty good way to balance that. And then it also comes down to mappers. It's one of those things where it is a different game. It's not Quake. It's not Tribes. It is something in the middle. And the thing is that the Tribes side, it actually kind of ports pretty well. But indoor, we're having fun determining scales and such. Like, for instance, Greth had been working on a map that was way too tight, it turned out. And it looks like
that's
the
map looked like to me. Is that the one he showed off in the video?
Yeah, that's the one he showed off.
Demos.
Yeah, it needs to. It could be playable if it was scaled up like 500%, maybe. Just everything much bigger. But I imagine indoor will feel probably a lot like a bigger Quake, a little bit more expanse. Probably not by much though. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few here. Let's see. It says, here's one from Shadowfax for Project Freefall. Are the guns currently in the Tech Demo 3 made by you guys? And how much more demanding are CTF and terrain maps than your current Sanctuary map? Which a lot of these are basic Unreal
stuff. Do you mean performance-wise?
No, I think he means demanding, like, actual skill-wise. I've talked with him a bit. But the weapons, I'm not sure what he means. If he's asking if the models and the visuals and such are ours, they're not. They're all stock assets pulled from either the shooter game sample or other samples, and that have been... sometimes some of them are used just straight up, and then other ones are kind of scaled and rotated and such. But as for mechanically, yes, all of the weapons that are in are made by me, actually. And they'll be in various forms. They're getting tweaked as well, just due to the transition to outdoor. And then what was the second part?
What kind of basic weapons are you looking at throwing in there?
Well, I'm experimenting with long range, because I'm not interested at all in introducing a hit scan rail or anything that's unlimited hit scan, I should say. Might see something like a classic railgun that's a high velocity projectile. Looking at not necessarily a lightning gun, but similar tracking mechanics. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing with it yet. And then there are some weapons that were backlogged from UDK that'll be porting back. I don't know if anybody remembers the grenade launcher that has backspin on it. That'll be coming back in. And then homing weapons as well, but I have to do code work on it, but I have a lot of math written out and such. I just need to code them in. And when I say homing, I'm not talking about like tracking 100%. I'm talking more, I think a needler from Halo or something like that, something that can lose tracking pretty easily. Or actually, no, more like the plasma pistol now that I think about it.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to throw that question towards the Project Z guys. Now, I know there's a disc launcher, which you guys are calling a ring launcher for legal purposes, and I know that there's a 100% inheritance chain gun of some sort. Are those the basic weapons? So what are you guys looking at throwing in there for?
So what we gave to people in the demo is we gave them basically just the LT loadout, the grenade launcher, the disc, the chain. And so we're planning on just adding basically the entire cast of like classic tribes weaponry, and then working out from there as we need to. The idea we're not currently shooting as quite as creative as the weapons in Project Freefall, which are actually which are some of the ideas are like really cool, but yet confirmed.
The Jackal's coming back.
Oh,
Yeah, as Fire can tell you, and Hollow from Team Generator can confirm, the Jackal is the best chasing weapon.
Yeah, so we're looking to add new weapons, but we're trying to keep the designs fairly in like the Tribes classic arena shooter vein, where they're all pretty different, which means that it's pretty tricky to add new stuff. Just trying to keep them actually different instead of adding weapon variants or something like Counter-Strike, which has a lot of weapons that are very similar mechanically.
So Ignorance said that he doesn't want to hit scan rail or anything like that. Nothing infinite. Maybe you should talk about that in Project Z and the Fog of War, because we begged Tyrez for Fog of War and we got the Stonehenge Haze.
Yeah.
Oh my God, was that you guys that got that? I got headaches from that
I
shit.
mean, that was everybody begging for the Fog of War, and it was too advanced for high res to do though. Unreal Engine 3 couldn't handle it.
I don't think that's true, but whatever. So basically in our demo we have like a huge amount of fog, probably more than we'll have in the end. Mostly because I'm not really interested in arguing about fog with people. So I just set it basically as high as it is in like T2 or something, and just left it there. We're looking at doing those things. We're definitely, so whatever we do, the sniper rifle probably won't be as good as it is in like T2, just because of like with the netcode stuff we have planned. There's no way that we could make it that good in like good conscience. It'll just be too good. Okay.
But sniper rifle confirmed.
Yeah, there will be a sniper rifle. Exactly what the mechanics of it are, I sort of joking around saying we're not going to call it the sniper rifle. We're going to call it the utility rifle, just because we really want to take the focus off of like just being a sniper, like just only sitting around sniping things. Like I don't think that should be a viable way to play the game.
Yeah, so how it worked in Tribes 2, we should note, it wasn't like Tribes Ascend where you had a dedicated sniper on your team exactly. You were more like, you'd have to give up a grenade launcher for the laser rifle, so you'd be giving up combat potential. And there was a thick fog of war. You can't find cappers across the map and ping them once and they're dead because LOL regen.
Yeah,
how it worked. And
so we're of course looking at like all the mechanics, like fall off, the weapon, the energy, the way it's tied to energy. We're looking at all that stuff. Exactly which ones projectiles also, since we're pretty lag compensated, making it a projectile sniper isn't too outlandish, and that'll like make positioning and stuff more important. So like all that stuff, that's all TBD, like what exactly it ends up being, but the general idea is that we want it to be one weapon in the loadout that you use, and you have to make trade-offs for it. So
okay, that makes a lot of sense. Here's one from Fixus, and this is a good one as a general topic. What attracted you to UE4 besides the new payment model and source access, and what didn't you like about Unity? And surely your hearts are still with Torque. I don't know about that, but
only because it ripped out of our chests. That's why our hearts are still with it.
Yeah. So I guess that's. Or do you want to? Why don't you throw that Ignorance first, since he also switched?
I switched and then switched again.
Oh, that's
I'm
true.
that crazy.
No, all right. Fine, I'll answer it. So UE4, UE4 is great for us. It's like, well, aside from source access is actually like a really huge deal for us. It means that, like if there's something weird with like the way player movement code works, that I can just fix it, which is a huge deal coming from something like Unity, where you're like, oh, like I can't, like the character collider thing doesn't work in like this exact way, so I have to like create all this code, like this weird code on top of it, where I sort of imitate like calling physics at a lower level because I just don't have access to it. Because Unity has like very high level APIs for programming, so
Yeah.
it's very difficult to get what you need done if what you need is like is fairly involved. So things like lag compensating projectiles and all that stuff just basically involve like really slow, hacky workarounds. Where in Unreal, we basically just call into the physics engine directly and like, all right, move these things here and see what happens when you're shooting at this stuff, which is great. It's also a lot faster just to work with for doing those sorts of things, not creating all this like janky scaffolding. But so then there's also like networking. The Unreal networking is a lot better for us than Unity networking, which you basically have to create. You have to create everything yourself, and you have to do all this like blah, blah, blah. It's not a huge deal for our specific game or our use case right now because we don't have like so much stuff happening that's like unmanageable. But having to create like the networking yourself as either a C++ plugin for performance or a C API plugin for performance, because you can't even compile to C++, or like a C# plugin which comes with all like the terrible performance implications that means. Like that's all, like just don't have to worry about any of that. Unreal does the replication for us, and we can sort of build and what we would call like networking code. Like casually as a gamer, like all that stuff's built on top of that, and it's fairly easy for us to handle. So like that stuff is a huge improvement for us. And I saw that, I was like, oh my god, right? And just like so I saw it, I like immediately thought of switching. And aside from that, the artist tools, the artist tool chain is like just incredible. The graphical, the way that like the graphical fidelity that comes out of UE4 is really great, and like those things matter. As much as people will say they don't matter, they totally do. So it allowed us to reach the graphical bar that we wanted without me having to do the work to add all that stuff to Unity, which turned out to be like really painful
like
once we started doing
shaders, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Unity isn't really set up to let people do any of those sorts of things, because they're sort of, it just feels like it's targeted at making it easy, much over like flexible.
Well, it's also targeted at getting you to pay $1,500 for a professional license.
Well,
that's a big deal.
Yeah, the professional license isn't as huge a deal for us as much as it is that the professional license still doesn't come with source, which is a much bigger deal.
Yeah,
we have to go for the source license for that, which is like the talk to us, which is pretty discouraging.
Yeah, no, I actually went and talked with the Unity people. I'm only like 20 minutes away from their San Francisco headquarters, and yeah, it's very different talking with them. Unity's not a game engine. Not a single person in there was a game person, whereas Epic is and has been, or every single engine they've released, it's a game engine. You can tell when you go in there. It's like when you open up Source, for instance. Source comes with an editor. Obviously, it comes with an editor. Nobody at Valve would have released one without it. It's the same thing over at Epic. Every engine they've released, they always release very, very robust tools with it. And it just happens that this engine now is brand spanking new, where Unreal 3 was from pre-2007.
So you're pretty pleased with the Switch then?
Yeah,
completely.
One thing that I thought was kind of profound, Mabel said before we did our presentation, is he said, one of the reasons why we switched, I mean, it's sort of apparent to everyone right now, which is, we wouldn't be here at PAX doing this thing right now if we hadn't switched to Unreal 4.
Yeah, I have to agree, because we were looking at Unity at first with #Rect, and then this was around the time that UE4 came out, and we lost a couple of weeks of development, but we gained so much in terms of stuff we wouldn't have to write from the ground up, and so it allowed us to be able to go from 0 to alpha with a playable game in less than 6 months, which is phenomenal to me.
Yeah, and along with that, like all the guaranteed updates, like $20 a month isn't that bad, right? As far as spending money goes, and like getting the updates that come with it are like really really great. I One of my big reasons I was like, okay, this is actually like a thing we can do is because, well, I discounted on UE3 because I just looked at it as like we're not going to be able to do the stuff we need to do with movement from Unreal scripts or UDK rather. I discounted. I was like, we're just not going to be able to do what we want because there's just going to be too many problems, right? We don't have low level access. That got fixed, and then along with that, the updates and like the current gaming climate basically guaranteed that a lot of the problems with Unreal had to be fixed, which I was willing to bet on in terms of like making the game. So like things like, well, people are like, oh god, the latency, you know, or like the way it handles like variable FPS, the mouse controls. I'm like, all this stuff must be fixed if they're going to like compete with VR being such a thing that everyone's pushing for. So I'm not really like that stressed out about that stuff getting fixed eventually. And then once it came out that like DX12, which everyone sort of like suspected for a while that there would be something like DX12 coming along, but once it came out, they were like, oh yeah, all right, so now we're totally going to have that too, which means that we have like parallel rendering, which is just going to be like much better usage of the CPU and everything. So like all that stuff is going to be great. We get all those updates for free, which with like source access also. So it's like it's just really a great deal.
Well, let me ask you this, man. How do you guys plan on dealing with things like modding and custom maps from the community?
BugsPray?
Bugs.
Yeah, so
Save me.
So modding and custom maps are, if we take a look at our own personal histories, right? Like we're the biggest benefactors of mods and custom maps. We've grown up with being able to do this kind of stuff. But the reality is that like the landscape for gaming has changed a lot. And as far as mapping and modding specifically are concerned, we see that like, each of those sorts of things, if we were to tackle that from a product standpoint, is increased time spent, increased resources spent. There's security issues. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that go on with those two things. And with that said, we definitely want some sort of mapping thing to happen. That's if we were to prioritize it to, mapping would be higher on the list because of the way that Tribes games work. Tribes games feel different with every new map, and when you have a good map, like it gets played constantly, right? I mean, we've all seen the dangerous crossings and the frostbites, and I forget the Tribes Ascend version, like Crossfire or something. Catabatic, there we go.
God.
But like when you get a good map, it gets a lot of play, and the more of those really great maps you have, the greater the longevity of the game. And so we want to be able to facilitate people to create that kind of content for our community. And so mapping is something that we are prioritizing. However, modding is like a whole other bag of tricks, and it's really hard to do well. It's hard to do securely, and it's one of those things like we could spend $3 to $4 million if we were a professional studio on just doing that and trying to make it work. And for us, trying to put out the highest quality game best we can, it's something that we are likely going to end up not being able to do unless we get a massive amount of funding and resources to do it. In addition, there are other kind of gameplay implications and user experience implications with it. And so, again, more reasons why it ends up being a huge resource hog and that sort of thing. So I'm sure not a lot of people are happy to hear that. But it has been posted around, and yeah, mapping is something we really want to happen, and we're going to do our best to make it happen.
Awesome. Ignorance, I know you're kind of coming at this a different way with the platform concept. So if people want to make mods or maps, they just go on your forums, the Project Freefall forums, and say, hey, I want to make this mod or this map, and then they pick up the $20 license and do it. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at the moment, it's a little bit sketchy just because it's really just now the game is kind of in that functional state I've talked about. But in the near term, that's going to be the case. I'm full source access, telling people if you're interested in maps and modding, you pay for Unreal 4. Anybody who's interested in mapping, for instance, they can just pay for a single month, and then they don't have to subscribe or anything like that. They just get access to the editor. Yes. And then for mods and such, I've already got several kind of ideas for setting it up to where it's more of a community supported thing, where the amount of people playing the game, like if there are custom mods and you join a server, having it to where you automatically download content if that's needed. Scripting is going to be in just because there's already Epic developers that are working on incorporating external scripting so that you don't actually have to jump into the source code to do it. And that'll be handy for a lot of people that do mods, because a lot of mods actually aren't too... They don't go too low into the code. A lot of it's just variables and maybe a little bit of custom behavior here and there. But it's a bit different just because, yeah, the user experience thing, I'm fully offloading it onto mappers and such. It's kind of one of those deals where good maps are great and we're going to let the shit float. Everything that sinks we'll just forget about.
Okay, yeah, so basically two different approaches to this. I hope Freaky's still here because we haven't heard from him in a bit. Are you there, man?
Yes, sir.
Here's something that I know is near and dear to our hearts, spectator mode. What would you like to see from these games as far as casting tools and spec tools?
It having one.
Ooh.
Yes, that is step one, yes.
It's a big step for a lot of people.
Yeah. Anyway. My stuff is pretty simple. If we really wanted to ask that question, we get Dodge Pong on here. I'm a simpleton. As long as I can, spectate someone, and lock on to them and round the camera around, maybe a HUD telling me what he's wearing, and then a free roam. That's about it.
The Tribes Ascend being kind of the jump off.
Tribes Ascend, it was a good system. It was just unfinished.
Yeah, we were talking about
it was
this.
Yeah, we were. It's incomplete. But everything they wanted to do that they said it was supposed to do was pretty good. It just didn't work.
What were you gonna say, Mabel?
No, I was just saying that we were talking about this at the PAX event where I talked to actually Dodge Pong about this sort of stuff, because I was sort of curious, because he started doing all the casting stuff basically right after I quit. So I never really got to see or be part of the community when any of that stuff was happening. So I was sort of curious in how it went, sort of getting ideas for implementation and like what would help with that sort of thing. So currently we don't have any story when it comes to spectator mode. It's just like, talk to us, we'll listen. So
hopefully UT can do something good with it.
Yeah, so that was the other thing that I was going to say, which is about UE4, which is that UT in their current, they actually do seem to be pushing for the electronic sports, which will probably result in them having to work out their story when it comes to like replays and stuff, which is nice for us.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to. Yeah, we kind of had to hack something in for #Rect, including a very wonky first person that does work, and I believe we've got it to where you can actually see your gun now. So, but a lot of this
further than Tribes Ascend then.
Seriously,
it already does look better than the first person Tribes Ascend. I know they were
just
kind of...
stop, guys. Just stop. You're breaking my heart.
Well, they admittedly they had to hack that into their already existing code and stuff. So, and we're able to kind of go at it from an early standpoint. So that does help a lot development wise.
Tribes Ascend is built on top of the Unreal Tournament code, actually.
Yeah, the 2K Unreal Tournament 2K4, their spectating system, their first person spectating was wonky too. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
You couldn't see the weapons. The reticle was some default piece of shit.
Yeah.
So
demos were good though. Demos were really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Unreal does have like a whatever. Super technical, doesn't matter. But yeah, so the spectating we want to do it. We want to have like all the good stuff. It's just a matter of like time that's going to go into it. We're not going to have time explicitly to upfront put into things like replays and stuff, but I suspect that will come with UT4 getting farther along. And we're not writing, since I write so much of the code, I have a good idea like what I would need to change to do things like add first-person spectating and that stuff. So
yeah, it's kind of a race to either catch up or see what Epic works on. That we were talking about this a little bit, the fact that it's bleeding edge software, and so sometimes you can go down the path of working on things that the next patch that they put out has a built-in solution for. So yeah, a lot of these things, when we're all working in UE4, that we're hoping that Epic kind of throws them in there because they will need them for Unreal Tournament 4. Ignorance, have you guys even looked at spec mode much at all?
Yep, spec mode is actually on the short list in some ways, just similar to what Rex got going on, just basic third-person, first-person, free cam spec initially, because those aren't that difficult to do. And then anything further down the line, this kind of falls into a lot of they're not really gameplay related, they're more utility related things, where I feel it'd be better just to leverage what's already in the engine. There's for instance, in Unreal 3 there was a general recording software solution that was already written, and because Unreal 3 and Unreal 4 are actually fundamentally the same in how they handle game objects and such, that the code doesn't work, but the theory behind it is a direct port. So I'm in the same boat as you guys. If I get to it before someone at Epic does, then I guess I'll be implementing recording. If not, I'll just be copying and pasting whatever else is existing. But yeah, spectating is definitely planned just because it's open source. So, I mean, if somebody screams they want spectating, I'll tell them to go fuck themselves and code it.
The fun of open source, yes. I have. They were asking. Neeple did ask if there was anything to throw in about Rect. I do have something, and this is specifically for the whole Gamergate controversy. There was an article about how games need to have more healing and edifying properties. And I can announce that #Rect is indeed on the forefront of that fight. There are scientific studies that show that playing these types of games, these FPS games, does increase your brain activity, your spatial awareness, the cognitive level that your brain is working at. And we have been consulting with neuroscientists and sort of working on making our game a little bit more like that. So I can actually say that playing #Rect will make your brain work at a higher mental state. I mean, look at Proj. Look how smart he is. If you don't believe him, read the first sentence or two of any comment he writes. And so what I'm saying is if you play #Rect for 10 to 20 hours a week, it will make you smarter or as smart as Proj. There you have it, exclusive to this podcast.
That was a selling point you're trying.
Yes, it will heal your brain, basically, is what we're saying, and that will be a big part of our marketing from here on out, is to let people know that playing our game will make you smarter.
Nice.
You got a pretty big mountain to climb, though, in that genre. There's a lot. There's a lot of FPS is coming out right now. I could go down a list and name some that you guys probably haven't even heard of. I go on the Arena FPS subreddit and I see new stuff every week. I'm like, what?
There's a lot of new projects.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Currently, Neeple is tracking about 16 different projects, from what I understand. Now,
is that a hard number right there? I do see that guy post a lot.
Yeah, it kind of it changes a lot, because I mean, some of these things are not going to make it to the finish line, let's be honest, but then some of them are a long way off, and there are new projects popping up every day, and yeah, like you said, it's hard to keep up with them because there are so many of them. But we're trying to make something. I mean, there are already Quake clones. We don't want to be a Quake clone. We want to try to make something that's unique, that reminds you of those games, but still has its own character and flavor. And there are a lot of things as far as gameplay that we're working on that we're keeping close to the vest right now, but it is about space wizards in the future battling for the benefit of the 1%. So there will be more wizardry involved, and several other things that I think that will add to what makes us unique and kind of sets us apart, along with the movement and gameplay, which we're very happy with so far, and we want to thank everybody who has given us such positive feedback about it so far too, because it seems to be something that I think we can fill a pretty good niche, and we will definitely be set up for competitive play and for being able to cast. I mean, we already have spec tools in it, rudimentary spec tools, but they're there. And so, but we also want to appeal to people who haven't played as many of these type of games too, and still have a skill curve, but not be so intimidating that, you know, you got 30 people from ES Reality playing it in the world, and that's pretty much it. That's really not a good look for us. So, but yeah.
Do you want more than that?
So how would you sell me on your game? Because from what I see, it's like Quake with jetpacks. Right now, that's all that I know about it, at least.
Sort of, yes, but the movement is, we're just trying to get it to feel good. I mean, there are a lot of things that people say it reminds me of. Yeah, there's strafe jumping, there's wall jumping. If you ever play something like Warsaw and things like that, it has elements of that. But yeah, we're going to add some other wrinkles of gameplay that will add a little bit of space wizardry to it as well. So I think over the next few months, I will say, we've got an update coming out in a couple of weeks that has a lot of quality of life type of stuff, like menus, FOV slider, a whole lot of graphics options that you can change, key bindings, which Epic for some reason has not put into Unreal Engine yet, so we had to put those in, because when Rafa and all those guys played our game, they're just like, how do I change my keys? And we were not able to.
I was the same way in Project Z, so
I don't listen.
Well, the good news is that Unreal 4 actually seems to handle innies well now. It seems like they've changed some things that actually makes it to where whenever you push another tech demo or something like that, if anybody wants to edit their keys, it should be doable as long as you're running past Unreal Engine 4.4, which that's the latest that's out right now. So there's some editability. It's just not in HUD form, I guess.
Yeah,
someone like me though, who's not a game programmer, and I go into Unreal 4. And
oh no, I'm with
like,
you all the way.
I want to change WASD. I'm not a WASD player, or ESDF, and you have to figure out that to move backwards, it's actually just move forwards with a little -1 at the end and stuff like that. It's still a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
But as far as other titles coming out, I would just say keep us on your radar, because I think that the things that we are working on now will make us stand out even more than we already have. I mean, we like you guys. We kind of wanted to work on the movement and the feel first, and then build from there. And I think we've, by all accounts, we seem to be on a pretty good track on that. So now it's making the things that really make things more unique for #Rec. Speaking of on the radar, I know we were talking a little bit about Telos. I was hoping we would have more news from the Telos front, because that game looks really cool. I know he had a LAN event a while back of his own where he had people playing the game, and that seems to have gone very well, and that the game is scheduled. He's looking at potentially having something playable out by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. I don't want to put too fine a point on it without having Justin here to tell us for sure, but Telos is definitely in the running too, and it is definitely a unique game. It really doesn't seem to look like anything else that we've talked about, so that's a cool one to look out for. As far as other FPS+Z projects, I'm not really sure. We haven't heard from Smooth in a while about Legacy, unless you guys have.
I'm pretty sure Smooth P has real life stuff that got in the way, which is a real bummer. But
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other than the other FPS+Z games, there's not really much else that's going on. It's mainly you've got a bunch of Quake-likes, Reborn, Reflex. I know there's a couple more.
That's the short list right
there.
There's
Nexus.
There's
Oh,
Wingland.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wickland is pretty cool.
Wickland actually looks kind of interesting.
I've only heard of the first three.
Erect, Quake Live is coming to Steam.
For a short,
Mhm.
limited
You got
time only.
Blue
Boring.
Streak, whatever that's gonna be.
Oh, man.
No one really
Blue
knows,
Streak.
but it's gonna
Baltimore
revolutionize the
Raven and
genre.
Rooster are working on a game. I did not know about
Toxic.
this.
Yeah, they were
Toxic
they
is
were
cool.
getting together to try and make another Tribes kind of game. They were calling it Last Hope. Last I heard, development kind of slowed down on that one, so I'm not totally sure on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were
the plan
doing.
was there.
They used to be using Team Sky. They used to be running off of a fork of the Unreal 3 Project Freefall code, but
Oh.
if they're running off that, then they're definitely not doing anything. But I imagine if they're still doing anything, they've ported to Unity or Unreal 4.
I'm pretty sure they were working on UV4. Working on it before UV4, actually. That's a little bit weird.
Well,
Well-
their early builds were off of Project Freefall, is why I know about them.
Huh.
Hopefully we can get them on in the future to talk about it if they're still working on it, as we are. Yeah, it was a while when we did our last podcast, and we're hoping that we can decrease that gap a little bit in between the time that we do the next one. But it's been a busy summer, and a lot of what we've talked about today is kind of the fruit of that, as a lot of the people that we would have had on the podcast have been very busy working on things for you guys to play, so we really appreciate that. And thanks to Fictious, of course, for running the FPS+Z thing. If you go to the website fps-z.com and r/FPS+Z on the subreddit, and the FPS+Z QuakeNet channel in IRC, these are good places to find out about all these projects. Any final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here?
Yeah, so I've got a little something to show off. If you guys want to take a look at it, we can link to it in the podcast links and everything.
Okay.
I just shot you guys an email if you want to pull it out in there. It's kind of a low-res shot of some of our concept art that we showed off at the event. And I'd like to use this time to also say that pay attention to our Twitter page, because we're going to start putting up some regular releases of content, starting off with some concept art each week on Thursdays. We're going to start today on Friday. It might bleed into Saturday morning, but I'm pretty sure we're going to put it up tonight.
All right, if you're going to link that, I got to ask, did somebody watch like The Fifth Element when they came up with that? I'm getting a lot of Fifth Element from that character's head.
Oh, yeah.
Justin is.
He
I'm digging
takes
it, but it's
inspiration
just-
from a lot of things, yeah.
Freaky, any final thoughts from you before we get out of here?
Not really. Just I'm excited to give the new release of Freefall a try. I'm excited to have a bigger map than the indoor one that was earlier.
You're also excited for Infinite Jets on your Infinite map.
Oh man, that's a lot of jets. I don't know. Also, yeah, and I was really excited about getting to get my hands and actually finally see Project Z at PAX, working title. But I was excited, super excited. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I do have one quick shout out though. A couple of weeks on the 20th and 21st, where I'll be casting the Tribes Ascend draft tournament, whatever.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
tune in for that.
Cool. Mabel, final thoughts?
No, BugsPray covered it.
I would like to give a shout out to BugSpray for pretty much giving me a place to live for a week up in Seattle. First trip to the West Coast ever.
Bros
Thank you,
forever.
Bugs.
Did you like it?
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
That's good.
Nice.
I love
bro.
that part of the world, man. It's like the Shire, you know. It's just
Yeah.
it's a magical place. Ignorance, your final thoughts. Now, people can find the game at projectfreefall.com. Is that the website?
Yeah, projectfreefall.com, and then that's where you can find the latest tech demo and source code, although the source code doesn't match with the tech demo yet. I haven't uploaded the latest build yet. As far as just things to keep a lookout for, anybody who's following Freefall, we're looking at, by year's end, probably going to start testing the waters with some tournaments and such. Because we're going to have game types, and we'll for sure have some maps working, and we want to put together some things just to see what kind of community we can get together. Otherwise, it's just going to be a lot of the same. Lots of update videos, and then micro updates and such.
Okay, great. And of course, people can play #Rect at helllegitgames.com. Pick it up for free. We play every Tuesday on IBN on Rec Tuesdays, so you're welcome to join us and play. Every Tuesday is a chance for people to gather and know that other people will be playing the game, and it's sort of a jump-off point for getting people to play and have fun. So, and I'm Winners with the One, and thanks again to Fixious and everybody at FPS+Z, and from all of us, this has been fun. Thanks, everybody. We really enjoyed all the things that we had to say here, and from all of us
Can I get a
here,
last word in there?
you sure can.
I wanted to actually mention, anybody who's listening to this that has any inclinations at all towards mapping, modding, programming, picking up anything that is on the computer screen in front of you right now, probably, really pay $20, get Unreal 4, and start going through some videos. Even if it's a hobby thing, it will enlighten you a lot as to how games are made, and it will make you appreciate them much more.
Absolutely. I have to agree with that, and that's a good place to leave off, I think. So again, thank you, everybody, and this has been the Z-Axis. We will see you on the next one.
Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
Woo!